This is me in T10 maps with no uniques, killing rares, and basically eliminating the T10 maps without any issues. Keep in mind, my staff is just okay, and I have no unique, so it's SSF friendly. Now, this is not a build guide video, even though you'll be taken through my build. I don't think I'm good enough to actually do a guide for you. I'd rather have a conversation about choices I made and why I made them. I'm sure my build is far below optimal, and right now I'm actually in a crit build in T15 maps, obliterating the screen more than this, and that'll be the next video very shortly. So let's keep it quick, and basically you can see I'm going around the screen here. I'm watching a replay of one of my streams, and and not really having any trouble. Ice Strike Monk with the bell, walking around, and not a lot of energy shield, not a lot of life, and not dying too much besides the on-death explosions and the chaos damage and a few other things which you've just got to be careful of in most situations in Path of Exile 2. Now, I don't have a guide, but I made a guide, which is interesting. The reason is I started, as you can see, in SSF. And when I realized SSF crafting was actually Gamba, I wanted to go to trade and I couldn't port over. So I had to start again. And rather than taking screenshots of all my jewels and everything, I just actually put this in Mob Analytics. So let's go through. This is not actually what I actually tweaked this further. This is far from optimal, but let's just talk through it a bit. So the first thing I want to talk about is this was at level 79. Let's just talk about the skill tree, because I actually find, I'll show you the gear in a second, but basically for the skill tree, my Ascendancy's Invoker, and I picked Lead Me Through Grace, which is vital, in my opinion, once you get good armor with enough stats to give you spirit. That's the whole point. I picked Protect Me From Harm. That was good at this time in the game. Armor's got a bad name in the game. It is true, armor is not great for big hits, but at this point in T10 and T6 to T10 maps, you're probably taking a lot of little hits, and Protect Me From Harm is quite likely good. Later on we spec out. Again, this is only for this point in the game. Next video we'll talk about some of the other choices I made. Now, when I started, I was going for speed and damage, basically DPS for the monk, and speed feels good on the monk. So we part through here. I wanted to come back and get some move speed for leveling through maps. I started going for energy shield, trying to get through to here. I spec'd back down for some freeze build up. I basically went for a lot of attack damage. Okay, that's what I went for. A lot of different kinds of damage, sorry. So here you've got a lot of attack damage with Blinding Strike. Very importantly, I went for Killer Instinct. Also went for tenfold attacks. You can have a read of this yourself. This is all attack speed and attacking and other benefits. This is quite a big one, Subterfuge Mask. I paired this with Spectral Ward, basically to give me more energy shield and more evasion. And you've got to equip the right armor. So for Subterfuge Mask, you just get a pure energy shield helmet. And if you want to take advantage of Spectral Ward the most, you get an evasion body armor. However, I ended up getting an evasion energy shield and specializing more in that later. Now for mana cost, conservative casting, and mental toughness, don't bother getting the other two mana regen nodes. I would recommend going for mana cost over regen. The reason why these nodes are powerful is because this one's got 15% reduced cost, and this one's got 8, 4, and 4. Go for the cost. I originally spec'd into mana regen, and it's a much slower thing, and it's nowhere near as good. Now, very importantly, down in here, I really wanted to get that attack speed going. Falcon Technique is fantastic. Along the way, you grab dex, and you come to the right and grab more dex. Basically, you're scaling attack speed with your dexterity, so you're really getting your damage up. As I said, I was focusing a lot on attack speed, damage, and some energy shield, right? Reflexes for more defenses, and same with Bestial Skin. Bestial Skin to me is just, it's very necessary in my opinion. I spec down here for even more damage, all the way down to Rapid Strike. On the right, went down into Herald damage. I might not have done this, to be honest. I only have one Herald at the time, and even though it's good damage, it's 1, 2, 3 points, 4 points for 50 plus, another 12 and 12. Up here, you might want to consider in the earlier stages rather going for something like Thin Ice. 50%. If you already got something in this part of the tree, it's 2 points to get 50% damage when you're doing cold. I really like this, especially early game. I like getting 30% attack damage against rare or uniques. It really helped me out in the maps. And look, it's not rocket science. It's just me playing around discovering, specking, unspecking into things. So I had jewels, you can't see them, but I would always put things like some kind of attack, some kind of damage, or some kind of energy shield into the jewel slots. Let's look at some of the skill choices. It's actually going to be useful for you to know what equipment did I have. I had one unique at the time, which is 15 exalts, which was the Pulse Circle Ring or whatever it's called, which shatters the enemies, but you don't need that. You can rather swap something for a Herald of Thunder or put on a ring with a slot for Herald of Thunder, which I have in my current build, which I'll show you in the next video. And you can have Herald of Thunder and Ice exploding the screen. And anyway, what I had is I had a good energy shield helmet, some evasion energy shield on my chest, and a staff with quite a bit of damage and plus extra melee skills. Now, later on, I got rid of this because it was just too mana hungry. But earlier on, you might want to get a +3. I had a +5 at one point to melee skills levels on my staff. The plus melee levels helps your Shattering Palm and it helps your Herald of Ice to really gain a lot of power. They're level hungry. However, later on, you'll have enough power and you'll be dropping that. Key skill is Ice Strike. Everyone's going to be different. This is far from perfect. I don't have POB to tell you what's ultimate. I just threw in Primal Armament for damage, Martial Tempo for speed, and Concentrated Effect. I don't really care about Area of Effect. We've got the Bell, we've got Herald of Ice. So this is really good for 40% more damage. And Close Combat, I really like that too. It just gives that 25%. Again, if we don't care about AoE and we're hitting people face on, then those are okay gems. People putting Rage, that's probably good or better. I don't know. I had success with this and it was fine with it. I forgot to mention in a tree, we may as well mention, I had charges on my staff. So in order to get charges on your staff, there are a couple ways. The main accepted way is to path up here and get Resonance. And what you do is get Charge Staff. And Charge Staff will consume all the power charges into your quarter staff. And you get the power charges from Combat Frenzy. But Combat Frenzy gives you, if you read it, it gives you Frenzy charges. So it's pretty simple. I'm not going to go through in detail. It's everywhere on the internet. But you basically get Combat Frenzy and Charge Staff. But you need power, not Frenzy charges. So Resonance converts power instead of Frenzy. And there you go. While you're here as well, you can add a jewel. And I went down into Deep Trance. Again, giving me the cost of skills and damage, as I mentioned before. And then while I was here, I got some energy shield as well. So it's not a bad part of the tree to spec into, actually. Back to my skills. Charge Staff, Cold Exposure, Overcharge. I basically increased the lightning. With Overcharge and Innovate, I wanted to do more lightning. And Temper Spell is obviously the main weapon for single target enemies, or the main skill for single target. You smash this spell and it multiplies, amplifies everything, and it's fantastic. Overabundance allows you to have more than one bell. It hardly ever worked for me. My attack speed was so high. By the time the second bell spawned, the first one was gone. And so I hardly ever was in a situation with two bells. So I found that I got rid of this and just put in a more, you'll see in my later build in the next video with more power. But Temper Spell had, Heft, Heavy Swing, and Overabundance. The first two just for the more damage, and the last one to allow more than one bell at a time. I never put bell in more than one slot. I just didn't. I don't think it's wrong. I just didn't. I think that's probably going to get nerfed immediately, and it's probably not the style I want to play long term. Ghost Dance is in there for defense. You can read its skill. It consumes a shroud to recover energy shield. At the time, I just had Fast Forward in there, which is basically to gain the shroud more often. In terms of Combat Frenzy, which was mentioned to gain the charge, we had Cannibalism, something which can run on any buff skill really, and it does have a cost reservation. So it does use your spirit, but I think it's a great one. 4% of life on kill. You won't need it if you're CI, and I did convert to CI, so that will be my next video. Again, Profusion is 50% chance to grant additional charge, and Clarity was just at the time. I mean, this build has mana challenges. Grim Feast was really, really important. It was basically can overcharge your energy shield. Your energy shield can go up to double. You kill a mob, there's a chance for something to happen. You'll see a little like wisp on the screen. You will walk near it, it'll absorb into you and give you more energy shield. So if you've got 2,000 energy shield, with this you can get 4,000. It doesn't happen immediately though, you have to kill mobs. So it's not so useful for bosses because once you lose that with a boss, you're not killing them, you don't gain it back. But for mobs, it's fantastic. And Wind Dancer is for your evasion. It's super important, I think. I've had people on my Twitch chat say they don't use it anymore, but I for the time being, I'm still leaving it on in my future build. Wind Dancer, this goes in multiple stages. If you quality it, you can get another stage. And I do recommend qualitying all of your gems almost. You can check PoE2 wiki, because not all of the skills tell you what they do with quality in Path of Exile 2. It doesn't mean that they don't have an effect. Go online and check, because they do. And Herald of Ice, one of the key features of this build, which is helps you to shatter everyone on screen. Now, if you've got Pulse and Ring, or however you pronounce it, just use this. I also had Shattering Palm. Shattering Palm was extremely important. It's a skill where you move the mouse towards an enemy, and when you activate it, you actually teleport to the enemy, and it actually hits them and enemies around them with damage and preps them for all your other skills. And I find it really helped me to explode the screen at the time. Supported by Glaciation to cause more freeze build-up, Ice Bite, which I'm not so sure is necessary, to be fair. You might find someone with a better setup. Just play around with it. Magnified Effect was really good. I would actually propose that's moved to Herald of Ice if possible. And I had Maim. Now, in terms of heralds, this is not what you should necessarily follow. This is what I got just before I had the Pulsican Ring. So I actually think the footage I showed you was before I had that. Herald of Ice is fine with these supports by itself. Cold Mastery and Cold Infusion for damage. But Elemental Focus is one that it's even more damage, but you can't inflict ailments like Chill. Now, if you have Pulsican Ring, get rid of this, because you want the Chill to explode the screen. This was just before I got it. So to be fair, this is actually a good recreation of my build that was still doing well. What I would do differently today is I would get Herald of Thunder as well. I mean, you could forego with something else, or you could get a ring with a slot or whatever you would like. Herald of Thunder, put the freeze gems, the Cold Infusion, and a gem which freezes, something like, Glaciation or something, into Herald of Thunder, and put lightning gems, ones that I had in Charge Staff, like Overcharge and Innovate, into Herald of Ice. So Herald of Ice it sounds counterintuitive. It's available elsewhere on the internet. You can find this in lots of builds. You get Herald of Ice to do Thunder and Shock, and you get Herald of Thunder to do Ice and Freeze, and they proc each other. So Herald of Thunder will shatter them and cause an ice explosion, which causes thunder, which causes Herald of Thunder, which causes ice. And so it's amazing. But if they ever nerf that, you can get Pulsican Ring, come back to this sort of setup, but get rid of Elemental Focus. And that's basically it for my skills. I will go into more detail in my next video, which is about where I am now, which is I've just got into level 90. I'll make a video about how without uniques at all, level 90, I was absolutely exploding the screen with Ice Strike. But this is just some of the more footage of me. Again, I'm not even sure if I had the Pulsican Ring at this time. This is a replay of it from a stream. And yeah, I got to say, nothing was too challenging. I'm not playing very well, but nothing was too challenging. And it's more about, guys, thinking it through, experimenting, playing around, and then coming back. And that's how you learn, rather than just, I don't like blindly following a build. Hence, I've not been following a build guide. I have been looking at other streamers. I have been listening to my chat. They have been reining me in, giving me ideas. I have been stuffing up and coming back. And I think that's the fun. That's the fun of Path of Exile 2. So I'll catch you in the next video. Now, I don't have the link for this build. If any of you, if I get enough comments, I'll add the link in to the description of the video, because it's not really a build guide. It was just me documenting an SSF character, which wasn't optimal at all, to capture it. So I didn't have to switch back and forth all the time, just to see what decisions I'd made when I was recreating the exact same character again, painfully, in trade. So I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.